And I love that some people started coming actually talking about like toxic positivity, and they're like, you always got to be happy. You always got to. I'm like, fuck off, man. You know how many times in my life rage has gotten me to do something that really moved me forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, since 90 to 95% of our brain is subconscious long-term memory. So what we're doing right here, right now, people listening, that's 5% of our brain. So knowing that, the idea in even what I do with people is to bring what's not conscious, right? And so that requires taking time to observe what's going on in your own head.
Imposter syndrome that we talk to with entrepreneurs, they never say I'm not good, but when you get the new big client, it's I don't know if I can pull this off. I think this, it's all those little things like that. It's not the I'm not good enough. It's the I don't think this is going to work.
Most of my life, I thought I had my shit together and things figured out. But let me tell you, when I met today's guest, this gal flipped me on my freaking head and helped me see things that I didn't know were actually holding me back. And let me tell you, one of the things I want you guys to understand is the moment you think you got it figured out is the moment you don't know shit. So today we're bringing on Mandy Morris. She's one of my personal coaches. She's one of Kevin's personal coaches. She's also a therapist. And so I tell her to fuck off on a regular basis because she hits so well and gets inside my head to really help me figure out and break through the shit that is holding me back. So I'm really excited to bring her on. So
thanks for having me on. Also, the fuck offs. That's how I know I'm doing my job.
Absolutely. Every time I tell Mandy, I literally will say "fuck off, Mandy," and we know we've hit a good moment in our conversation. So, Mandy, why do so many people struggle with just reaching out and asking for help from people like you or people that have accomplished and done what they've done?
Yeah, it's like the ongoing stigma that I think is getting better, but it comes from all sorts of things. It's, think about your parents and the generation they were brought up in. It's, for whatever reason, we don't talk about the family business. We don't talk about our own things because you don't want other people to see you in a negative light or, whatever it may be. I think the other thing too is that I think more so than even society and upbringing, I think everybody to a degree, unless you become aware of it, stigmatizes themselves because you're placing some sort of value to the idea of asking help, that it means that there's some character flaw with you or that you're in some way weak because you don't know the answers to everything or how to figure everything out. And I think it's especially more difficult for men because there's this, whether it's from your upbringing or from society or whatever, you guys struggle more with the expression of emotions and feelings because that feels like a sign of weakness to a lot of dudes. It's not masculine enough or whatever it may be. So, all these things contribute to people thinking that they don't need to reach out to anybody.
Well, I think it's from at least from the guy side, it is the expected role we're supposed to be playing and how you're supposed to what people perceive as how they're supposed to show up outside of the privacy of their own house and their own home and their the closest circles within their lives. There's a way you're supposed to show up, and especially in the business world, no one wants to ever admit that that things aren't going as great as they should be. Now that leads just all kinds of thoughts. If your business isn't performing, you definitely want most people don't want to throw that out in the ether because what if a prospect hears that maybe they won't hire me now because they're afraid we aren't going to be around in a year. There's all kinds of that stuff going on that you feel you got to keep all that stuff really close to your chest and not throw it out in the world where people might use it against you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And on that note too, there's two main extremes for why people don't get help, ask for help. And it's one of the top self-sabotaging behaviors in leadership. It's like in the top 10 of them, the inability to ask for help or support. But there's the two ends. There's the shame on one end, and then there's grandiosity on the other end. So the people who think that they know themselves better than anybody else and that they know it all, and they're up here on their high horse thinking that it's beneath them to ask for help. And then there's the people who are so in their shame that they fear, like you said, Kevin, people finding out. What does this mean about me if I, admit that I'm not where I want to be in whatever area? So I think it's on those two ends is where we have the most problems.
Yeah, on the shame side of things, I know one of the things that I struggled with personally was, would I actually like the person who I discovered going through the journey, right? I mean, because there's a level of courage it takes to sit across from somebody like you and be willing to get vulnerable enough. And I don't want to talk about, vulnerability like from a weakness standpoint, but vulnerable enough to go talk about some real shit. And I think, especially for us out running businesses and stuff, we're always used to, in a business environment, which is so loosely defined anymore, what a business environment is, that we're only supposed to talk business, that we're only supposed to carry on the stuff. So, the ability to sit across from somebody and open up and share some of the shit you're dealing with and everything is one of the most courageous acts on the planet. Because you're allowing somebody else to step in and see through your lens and see through your eyes. And I think for a lot of people, myself primarily, it's discovering the things that are truly holding you back that really becomes the breakthroughs. Like it could be, a fear of success, or it could be, a fear of wealth, or a fear of failing, any of these type of things. When somebody is going through their particular journey, what is it that gets them to the point of, okay, I need help, I need support with this? What has to go through their head?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's lots of different situations of what could go through someone's head, but I think it's the noticing the chronic and constant like stress or frustration that then is impacting the way in which they're functioning at work or in relationships at home or in any area. I mean, I always say you can't check your baggage at the door just because you go to work, and people think you can and you can't. And so I think there's this, I mean, as they say, the first step is admitting there's a problem. It's being the ability to admit to yourself, I am not at my best, or I'm not doing good at all. And this is really starting to impact the way in which I show up in my relationships with people and at work. And I think past that, there's either the people who are okay with the idea of getting help, but in this case, with what we're talking about, unfortunately, those who fear or feel it is, one of those extremes for getting help, the shame or the I'm too good for this. I think that the main thing that will go to their minds, they get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And unfortunately, that ends up being the breaking point. And I so wish people knew, like, you don't have to get to a low, to a rock bottom, so to speak, to start that process. And, and to be quite honest and transparent here, because obviously I'm a therapist first before I did the executive coaching. But I pretty much operate the same way. I mean, it looks different for coaching than it does with therapy because we're more forward focused with that. However, I've had to change my language around because a lot of people, CEOs, business owners, executives, they don't like the idea of a therapist. And so I'm a coach, right? Which is fine. Like, and it's not a knock on coaches or anything like that. It's proving the stigma point around it. And which is why, one of my catchphrases now on my website is I make the best better. So that there's not this stigma around if I have a problem. But the reality is if we're talking, there's an issue going on to make you better. And it's not a weakness. It's being human. And the sad statistic is that 90 to 95% of people think they're self-aware when in reality only 10 to 15% are. Everybody's got blind spots.
Yeah, for sure. And I, in my head, I think it can be even simpler than that. It doesn't have to be that there's necessarily a problem. I think it really can come down for a lot of people if they're asking themselves one or two questions over and over. If they're asking themselves, why is this happening, or why do I do it this way? And they're asking the why
Or why
questions.
do I always end up here?
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah, why does the same pattern?
Why does the
Yeah,
same
why does
thing
yeah.
happen? Or
Over
the
and
other
over,
one
yeah.
is, or the other question that if they're asking themselves and they're trying to figure out internally, that should be a clue is like, hey, I should go talk to this person, is how? How do I get to here? And I think making that shift from, oh, you got to have a problem to come get a coach or talk to a therapist, to, hey, I'm trying to figure out these things that move me forward because here's where I want to be. That changes the whole paradigm around the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that when you say, oh, I keep asking myself, why is this and why is that? I'm going to ask someone who can actually help me figure out the why instead of just, continually dwelling on it. Now it's a positive conversation. It's not a I'm broken and I need to fix myself conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And along those lines too, it's, sometimes exactly, people who I work with, they just want to get to the next level. And they just want to figure out what a bigger, better version of them would look like in growing their business or in getting to the next level position or whatever it may be. And that's not necessarily because they're doing anything wrong. However, everyone's got mindset barriers that keep them from, they hit their own ceilings. And that's never a negative thing. It's just the reality of being human. And we can't see things for ourselves because we live with ourselves every day. Like I am very open about being a therapist who has a therapist and a coach and, and all the things too, because it's just part of being human.
Well, honestly, if you're seeing a therapist or a coach and they don't have one of their own, are they probably the right one to be talking to?
Yeah, because they obviously don't believe in either therapy or coaching, one of the two, right? Yeah, and I love the idea that it's helping the best get better, because for a lot of us that have achieved some things and found some level of success, I don't want to move backwards. I want to level up, right? And do something in a bigger way, or impact more people in a louder way, or find some more, personal success, on this journey. And, sometimes you just need a damn sounding board to filter the damn thoughts in your head. Hey, I'm thinking about this. And when you got somebody that's clinically trained to, not only help you think through it, but poke through why you may be thinking in a certain direction, there's a lot of power in that, in the ability to get that kind of feedback. And I just think a lot of people either they may not want the feedback or they don't like the feedback, but I think the best of the best thrive off of that said feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. You've said this before, Donnie, like you never want to be the smartest person in the room. Yep. You always want to be bettering yourself in some way. And yeah, it's unfortunate that more people don't take advantage of it. But when I'm working with clients and let's say we did do some, we had to work through some issues that were going on, but now they're ready for more of like the coaching piece of it. I'm like, this is the fun part. Now we get to really look at the future and what your idea of the you 1 year from now, or the you 5 years from now, whatever it is, what you want that to look like. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things to do with you, honestly, is to sit down and go, okay, I'm thinking about taking the business this direction and doing these things. These are some of the issues that are rising as we're doing it. These are some of the things that I'm thinking about trying to employ. Help me walk through those. And, the conversation then gets pushed to, cool, what do you think? The pushback and everything to allow us to get there. And I think most honestly for me, you've helped me see where there's times that I think and maybe see big picture. And then there's times I'm looking at it through a too small a lens because I haven't been able to see the whole scope of things. I know you have several like processes and things people can go through on their own to work on themselves and to better the things they're doing. If they're not ready to reach out to a coach or a therapist, what are some of the things that people could potentially do themselves to start working on themselves to help the best get better?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, since 90 to 95% of our brain is subconscious long-term memory. So what we're doing right here, right now, people listening, that's 5% of our brain. So knowing that, the idea in even what I do with people is to bring what's not conscious, right? And so that requires taking time to observe what's going on in your own head and taking time to look at where do I have frustration? Where do I have maybe some anxiety or some sadness or whatever it may be? The whole idea of behind emotions and permission to feel is looking at emotions as data and not as something that needs to be suppressed or hidden. Because when
Right.
you actually stop and accept and acknowledge how you're really feeling about things, because the our feelings are the internal triggers that go off to our experiences and our surroundings and what's going on in our world, and looking at emotions as indicators of things that you need. And so I think a process of learning to become, I jokingly say, like, learning to become the little inner scientist of yourself, like really just stopping and observing your thoughts. I mean, some people have mixed feelings around journaling or whatnot, but I always say you would never do a complex math problem in your head. You would write it out, get the stuff externalized in some way, whether it's talking it out or writing it out, and start doing an inventory of, am I really where I want to be? Like,
Yeah.
some honesty with yourself, and especially with successful people, the whole imposter phenomenon that's there. The definition of it is, despite evidence of success, you still feel like you're not good enough, or you're a failure, whatever it may be. But to even get to that place, you have to start paying attention to yourself and not just operating in life through reactions and auto responses.
Love it. Love it. You have a quote that I love, and it says, "Be brave enough to be bad at something. That is where the real magic happens." Tell me more.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So there's growth mindset and fixed mindset. And most of us growing up, we were probably told, do what you're good at. Go do that, right? You have a natural knack for blank, so you should be blank. When all that does is actually hinder people from growing in lots of different ways. And so when you do something that you're not good at, then the tendency is to quit or to feel like you're a failure or whatever it may be. But if you're used to trying new things or being okay with being bad at something, then you're going to learn how to master that thing if you want to. And,
Right.
there's not going to be this internal, like, personal attack on yourself because you're not good at it. One of the main common themes around the most successful people in the world is that they all know how to fail because they look at it as growth. And so if more people can try to do the thing that they're afraid to do because they might not be good at it or know how to do it yet, but they think they long to do it, or there's a passion there, or they know that's going to get them to the next spot. The idea is to be brave enough to fail and mess up and be bad at something.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a weird moment of time. Sometimes I love going and learning new shit and breaking things and figure it out, and there's other times I'm like, yeah, not so much, right? I don't want to go that particular direction, and I think it's the things that I perceive as that might be fun to learn or that could be a good time, those I'll lean in faster on. But the things that I think there's going to be a lot of work, maybe a lot of heavy lifting, are the things I'm not so excited to give after. And it's always fascinating for me. And, I feel like my entire journey, I have been on the self-help game. And I truthfully think the self-help game hurt me more than it actually helped me because I was reading books of think happy thoughts and, all this wishful, magical crap that gets
the
thrown out there.
positive bullshit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that some people started coming actually talking about like toxic positivity. And they're like, you always got to be happy. You always got to, I'm like, fuck off, man. You know how many times in my life rage has gotten me to do something that really moved me forward, getting pissed off that, over things like this is how it's always done. So the way we do it, fuck off, hold my beer and watch this. We're going to go a different direction, you know?
Right.
And I think that, or I should say, I love the fact that the noise is coming out in the marketplace to like turn off the dumb shit. Let's go use what we're already given, what's already in our ability and power, and let's get tactical and move forward. So for me on the self-help stuff, it felt good to hear that stuff. Like, oh, you can think happy thoughts and you're going to be a millionaire, right? It felt good. And I think that's where they suck you in.
So hard to apply. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Because it's not always realistic. Yeah.
Right. You know, how
we have we've talked to multiple people who've had that outlook on like, oh, just build your business and the universe will provide and you'll be able to grow. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm just supposed to sit here and it'll work.
Fairy, dust bunnies, something that are going to come around and be like, poof, you have a business. I mean, it's a mental game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and here's the, I don't know, the difficult part about it is most pessimists think they're realists and most optimists think that they need to stay that way, when in reality, sometimes too much optimism can be harmful, which is a whole nother topic to begin with. And, a realistic mindset is the person whose ability to look at all things at all angles, have flexible thinking. But it's those sorts of like in the self-help world, the overly positivity, but they don't really like let you know that, hey, self-care is hard work. Self-care is a discipline. It's something that you don't want to do a lot of times, versus like, let's sing happy songs and have happy thoughts.
The people that are always chipper, always happy, always over the top excited are probably some of the most fucked up people on the planet, because they have to put on a front so much. I can't help but think that it's got to be exhausting as fuck to constantly be like, ooh, shiny, happy people, all the damn time.
Well, I did a post not too long ago, and it was check on the people who you think have it all together. Like, those are the ones you need to check on.
That's a really good thought, probably, because the people that look like they have it figured out are likely the people that are the most fucked up dealing with it.
Yeah. Well, all the celebrity deaths that have been comedians before, which there's been a number of them, Chris Farley being one of them, other people, but Robin Williams, they were the life of the party, but they struggled with depression and addiction and, obviously suicidal tendencies. And so it's,
do you think that's a form of escapism? Like they're trying to put on a front so nobody will recognize them, see them as their true self, or is it something beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a lot of things. I think some of the things that it could be is, yes, a form of escapism through something that you're good at. You get affirmations from like the external from other people, which we all love, to have compliments and have validation from others and affirmations. But you can't be dependent on it. Like, you have to be able to do that for yourself.
I got to ask a question, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before. I thought affirmations, and the way it was brought up, I was brought up on it, was only internal dialogue with herself. Are you saying affirmations come from other people?
They can. Other people can affirm you. I can say, hey, Donnie, you're the best guy at SEN, and I'm going to just affirm that you're good at what you do, or whatever. Compliments, affirmations you can say to yourself too, but it's all in the same.
So I want to talk through this, because I love this idea. So is it validating an affirmation I already have in my head, or is it potentially contradicting something I thought about myself, and then it becomes something I own? Does that make sense?
Let me see if I'm hearing that right. So if you affirm yourself, then you're truly trying to believe and ingrain this sort of nurturing care
Right,
for
'cause
yourself
I hate the
internally.
whole
Stuart
Stuart
Smalley.
Smiley stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Right,
And gosh darn
right,
it,
right,
people like me.
right. But so the thing with affirmations though internally, if you don't believe them, it's not going to work well. And
But I think
so,
for when it's someone else affirming you,
but so when someone else does it,
that can totally be in complete conflict with what you think about yourself.
well,
Because
right, yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's always going to go back to what do you believe about yourself. You know,
But
Donnie, we talk about this a lot.
yeah, so but if somebody else is able to affirm you, isn't that the same thing of needing their validation? You
So
shouldn't
there's
need
one
that
thing
affirmation.
well, it's okay to like it and to receive it and to use
Fair.
that as almost. I mean, it's I
A
don't know
building
another
block.
word, but a building block. It's nurturing for ourselves to hear that. But if you like, oh man, the only relief you get about how you feel about yourself is when other people say something because you're beating out the hell out of yourself in your mind, every day, and finally you got some relief from that because you heard something from someone. You're still going to go back to how you think about yourself, and that's going to be what you operate out of. Because our brain can't hold two conflicting beliefs. I can't believe I'm good enough and I'm not enough.
Yeah, I hate it every time you say that.
I am so showing up to our operations meeting on Monday, and Donnie's going to have been added in a affirmations section to the meeting.
Oh God, no. God, no. I've always struggled with the I'm just gonna think happy thoughts and tell myself I'm awesome and shit's gonna be good, because I know from personal experience for myself that if I'm not taking actions and things aren't breaking, there's nothing I can do to change it, right? So there's no amount of words that are going to magically slap me upside the head and get me to push forward in life. But I also will say words have fucking power. So I could be talking to somebody and say something that they take out of context, or they have some own internal head trash about themselves, and then I say something over the top that hits them, triggers them, if you will, and it has more to do with their own shit than the words that actually came out of my mouth.
Right. Well, so so let's do a real time example here. So Donnie, you start to, or Kevin, either one of you, get frustrated, don't like the direction in which something's going, or you thought something was going to work out and it didn't, and the automatic thought in those moments are what?
So
like when you're upset and not happy with where things are.
Go ahead, Kevin. Well, no, I need more detail. What is the situation? What just threw up?
Sure. So, okay. All right. So, Donnie, what's something in the past year that you remember making you not feel good about yourself?
Past year that I remember making me not feel good about myself. So we recently did a trade show with my brothers. We did all this woodcraft and everything else. They both outsold my ass. I didn't sell a damn thing. So at that moment, I was like, what the fuck am I even doing here?
Okay, right there. All right, perfect example. That's the automatic thought. You want to pay attention to the automatic thoughts. Those are those neural pathways that just automatically, there's already wiring in your brain for it. So the thoughts just, without any effort, they go there. So why the fuck am I even here? That probably isn't helpful, right? Because you've had that thought and then you felt what way?
Oh, that I should be back working on Success Champions and not sitting in a fucking trade show doing little wood crafts and shit. That's the thought.
Right. Well, that might not be a bad thing. That kind of gives you direction and perspective.
It's the right thing.
But right. But if the thought then creates this internal distress about yourself, it's not helpful. So just like positive thoughts aren't always helpful, and negative thoughts don't have any value to them. Like they don't get you into problem solving mode. And even if they're true, they're not helpful. Like, so what the hell am I doing here versus it's normal that my brothers outsold me.
Well, and what's even funnier is they should have outsold me because my older brother, that's what he does full time. That's his fucking company. Right. So they should have outsold me. The negative thought that ran through my head wasn't, hey, what a cool time to hang out with your brothers. It was, why the fuck am I sitting here when there's other things I could be doing?
Right. And so I tell people the idea is to find a believable neutral thought that's true of all people, especially like, because if someone were to say to you, oh, Donnie, look on the bright side, or it's not that bad, you'd be like, shut up.
Right?
let me be mad. Let me be mad. Right.
Yes.
Right. And so the idea is to find something neutral, normalizing, like it's people fail or people make mistakes, or, this is the first time I've done this. It's normal to be frustrated. Like you're just normalizing your experience with it instead of going down the negativity route, but you're also not being overly positive. It's like, this example is just popping to my mind. I was trying to think of a different one, but I'll just go with this one because it proves the point that like I have a woman that I'm working with in therapy, and she has some body image issues or whatever. So instead of, her, every time she looks in the mirror is, ooh, gross. And so instead of that, I look like a woman. And that sounds kind of silly, but it's not like, hey, I think I look great and I'm this awesome person and all of that. Cause, if you've ever been in that headspace, or, for this person, she's not going to believe that. But I look like a normal woman. It's less miserable than the negative thought that then creates the anxiety, the frustration, the depression, like all the stuff. So all that to say, paying attention to your thoughts and finding more helpful ones doesn't mean that they have to be overly positive.
But sometimes, I think though, sometimes that framing of, I'm normal. This is a normal thing is going to be more powerful than the opposite, because it actually allows you to move your thinking.
Yeah.
Being normal isn't a bad thing.
I'm going to push on that. Oh, because that's why I want to push on it. I don't want to be fucking normal ever. Right.
But I think it depends on the situation, though.
Okay. So I knew you were about to say that, Johnny. I knew you were about to say that. So it's not about like that, though. It's about an emotional experience you're having with a negative thought about yourself.
That is a normal experience
that is placing judgment on yourself. That can take, depending on who you are, you got to know yourself. Does that take you down the dark, deep rabbit hole of negative self-talk or not, versus normalizing the experience, not who you are as a person?
Fair enough. I like that said better that way.
Because there's nothing that means you can't get better. Hi, 50-year-old man, going to have the old man body at some point. But that's okay. There's nothing that's stopping me from now taking action so that I don't look like an average 50-year-old guy.
Right.
But living in my body, I hate my 50-year-old body is just such a horrible place to be. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is what 50 looks like. Sweet. All right, cool. Mm-hmm. Now what do I do with that? It's what you do with it. You can't just stay in that area. But
it's the value and the judgment that you assign to the thoughts.
Yes, because this is what 50 looks like is a choice, because somebody who takes care of their fucking health and takes care of their diet and really works out is going to look different than somebody who doesn't, right? So how you look at it 50 is still a lot of choice in that factor. So I like the idea of how it either allows you to own what normal means. Mm-hmm. Right. That this could be just a normal portion of life. Not saying you're normal. This is normal for.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it keeps you from getting into that, in psychology land, the inner critic, right? That negative self-talk where you're being the judge of yourself, and that judgment and that negativity, whether, people believe it or not, is going to affect your mental fitness and the way in which you move forward and all of that. It creates, negative thoughts. There's research on how it creates more toxins in your body. That's where the mind-body connection. And so, I mean, literally everything gets affected by what goes on up here.
Yeah. I can tell you that the days I'm having a perceived good day, right? I'm a lot more productive, a lot more things get done, and I accomplish a lot more. The days that I'm having a shitty day or things have just stacked up and everything else, there's a lot more chances for me to get derailed throughout the day because there's a lot more stress, there's a lot more thoughts. And I don't know about everybody else, man, but once I get in my head, boy, it's really fucking hard to get out of there. Yeah, because you start playing the tapes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is when you notice the thoughts, because that's what we'll notice first is the thoughts and the feelings, but those are symptoms of the issue. And the issue goes back to what you're believing about yourself. That is not a conscious thing that you're running through your head, but like, the thought of, worrying about what someone might think about you, let's say, or you walk into a room with like, all these stakeholders and now all of a sudden you feel intimidated or small or whatever. It's like, whether you realize it or not, you're probably in a moment of a negative belief along the lines of, am I really capable? Am I good enough? Am I going to fail? Whatever it may be. And switching your operating system from that unhelpful negative belief to what's really true is I'm capable. Like you were saying, Donnie, when you're in a good headspace, you're probably in your zone. You're probably believing that you got this, you're capable, you know what you're doing, whatever it may be. And so your operating system is then, less frustrating and stressful. It's more relaxed, more motivating. There's all these better outcomes with it. But the thoughts and the feelings, the idea is for that to lead you to whatever it is you're believing about yourself so that you can switch tracks there.
Yeah, as an introvert, every time I'm going on stage to speak, I literally go through that because you literally as an introvert, it goes right to, oh my God, this is gonna suck and I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fall apart on stage because just the mental trash that comes with the being an introvert. But it's I had to learn how to recognize that. All right, here. That's not a accurate statement, and how to change the thought process because I just know it's going to pop into my head. It doesn't matter if it is a stage of 30 or a stage of 100 or I'm going in front of 1,000. That pops into my head every time.
Yeah. Yep. Well, if you really want to do some therapy on yourself at home, then if you can notice what those thoughts are, figure out, okay, so what does it feel like that this means about me that I'm thinking these thoughts to myself? It feels like it means that I'm helpless or I'm powerless or I'm not good enough, whatever it may be. Then the question is, what's the earliest time in your life you ever remember feeling that way?
Right.
And that's where the origins of the belief started. And then it gets confirmed through other experiences. And you'll probably be able to see that it was never true to begin with. So it's not true now, but it's just there as neurological junk, as I like to call it. And as you said, Kevin, head trash.
Yeah, for me, I was always the shy kid, and then you get to high school, so you have to do the speaking thing. And the first time I did it, it was literally the worst experience of my life. For public speaking class, and that's just been the whole thing ever since. So and it's just now I understand where it comes from, but I understand how to make it not be a thing when I'm speaking, so that I don't have a bad experience in front of 1,000 people, which would just be horrible. But it took me figuring out, all right, so this is a thing, it's not true, and then all right, so how do I stop that thought process when it creeps in?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it is going to the worst case scenario and knowing that going through that, okay, I get embarrassed, I suck, I do all the wrong things, and then what do? Well, then I I move on. Like then I'll survive it. There's that part of it too. Right. Go ahead,
Well,
Johnny.
and like for me, the big thing for me is just in that specific scenario of the speaking thing. One of the things that I was always told is like, all right, so to stop paying attention that there's a few hundred people in the room, focus on individual people in the crowd and just move around the crowd and make eye contact with different people in the crowd. And the one time I was doing that, the lady couldn't keep eye contact. She looked down, and it was all I could do to not laugh. But it was literally broke that chain for me of the whole concept of me feeling embarrassed being on stage. Like, oh, they're embarrassed for me too, and they don't want to see me fail, and it helped me have that realization. Mm-hmm. But it's. Go ahead, Donnie.
I would say I struggle with the words like I'm not good enough or what's strong enough, those things, because I never have those particular thoughts, right?
Well, and it doesn't, those are like conceptual feelings about yourself.
Right. Because it's always something deeper than that, that
going from I'm not a good guy to I'm a good dude. Right.
Well, and it's kind of the
that's the same thing.
Of imposter syndrome that we talk to with entrepreneurs. They never say I'm not good, but when you get the new big client, it's I don't know if I can pull this off. I think that it's all those little things like that. It's not I'm not good enough. It's I don't think this is going to work. Or what happens if I screw this up? It's that.
Yeah, these are not conscious. Yeah, not conscious thoughts, and that's why people digging in and doing their own work around what they really think and how they feel about things and paying attention to all of that. Because what ends up happening is it comes out in self-sabotaging behavior. It comes out in procrastinating. It comes out in dwelling on mistakes or making excuses for your behavior or choosing to stay comfortable maybe over what's healthy or not communicating expectations. I mean, it comes out in all these things that are self-sabotaging, but that is a symptom of something that you're actually believing about yourself.
And that was my whole point of pushing back on that phrase is I think it's often said in the marketplace of the I'm not good enough, strong enough, whatever else, when what it really is all the things that are behind it that make it look like you think you're not good enough, strong enough, blah, blah, blah. It may not be the actual phrases.
Yeah. Well, another example of that is some women of minority in leadership positions who feel like they have to show up in these really masculine power ways in order to have any respect or to be able to do what they need to do. And for a lot of them, that comes from a sense of feeling inferior or a sense of feeling maybe not safe or whatever it may be. And so, I mean, this can look like a whole lot of different things, but your behavior and your thoughts and feelings are going to be reflective off of what's in there that you believe about yourself.
Right. And I think a big indicator that there may be potentially some good work somebody needs to do is if they hear or have the thought process of I have to be this person before I walk in that room, or I've got to if they saw me this way, which was my big corporate America one was, if anybody knew who the country dude was in corporate America, nobody would do business with me. And now look, my whole brand is country dude who cusses too much, drinks too much, and talks like I talk.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's looking at it in the military world, I think that is a big thing as well, especially as we see more and more female senior leaders, and especially now that women are now taking combat roles and becoming combat leaders. There's this perception, I think, for a lot of them that they have to lead a certain way to be effective. Yeah. And that's rooted in probably a lot of their early career within the military. Before you saw a lot of very high qualified females in senior leadership positions. Now they're, it's impacting how they do their job.
Yeah. Well, and the response may actually look the same in terms of So it's one thing to feel inferior. So now we're overcompensating, right? We're using more extreme ways of doing things because of that. But you may do those same things, but operate out of the belief of, I know what I'm doing. Like
Right.
I've got this. And so it matters how you feel inside. And that's why, especially with people in the military, while we're on that topic, you're trained to turn off your emotions. And the hardest part for people in service integrating back into real life stuff. I mean, with other civilians and people.
Civilian.
Is the ability to turn your feelings back on, because you can see how important it is to work through things, to be better, to level up, to whatever. Is that you gotta stay attuned to that. And if it shuts off, then you are no longer able to listen to those signals the way that you need to. It's like kind of like a hunger cue, when to eat. Like your emotions, they give you indicators of certain things that you need or that need to happen. So that ability to be in touch with your feelings or attuned to your emotions is important.
Well, I like what you get me to do every once in a while versus getting into what are you feeling, is you always ask, where do you feel it? And that's always an interesting thing. And I never understood until working with you that how much your body actually fucking talks to you when you're in different situations. Like, when you're nervous, you feel it in your gut, right? When you're looking back on those stories and moments of life that got you thinking whatever way you're thinking, right? You always ask, well, where do you feel that in your body? Right. And it's a unique way to look at that. You're holding a thought in a particular portion of your body, and that's how the negative emotions affect your body overall, which is really wild for me.
Yeah, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's all about that. It's all about how your body holds trauma, it holds emotions, and if you don't go through the, a healthy stress cycle response release of emotions, then it's going to stay stuck there. And the other interesting thing about that too.
But most people are taking care of those negative emotions by escaping through alcoholism, drugs, weed, right, whatever, pouring themselves into work. So that's their way of coping with those situations.
Yeah, that's the instant gratification coping. That's not the long-term lifestyle healthy coping. Right. Yeah. Well, and the other thing I was going to say about that is that your gut has its own separate nervous system. Our body literally picks up on things before it can make it to our brain. And so, being able to realize that and how important that is can be really helpful.
Man, we could continue to do this all day, Mandy. I love talking to you. I love working with you. And seriously, guys, Likewise. Every session, I literally sit across from her at some point and tell her to fuck off. And I just say, fuck off, Mandy. And it's because she's hit me right to my core with something that I needed to think about, lean on, or discover more about myself. And I freaking love it. So hopefully in this episode, guys, you freaking, found it within yourself to find somebody like Mandy, an executive coach, therapist, something. And it's not about going to get fixed. It's not about, going to get repaired. It's not about there's anything wrong with you. It's literally about how to make you as a badass a hell of a lot better. As Mandy says, make the best better. So, Mandy, how do people find you? How do they get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Super easy, super original. therapistmandy.com. It has my all my social handles on there. It has a way to get in touch with me on there. It has information about executive coaching, therapy, EMDR, all that stuff.
Love it. Guys, I promise, go get a session with Mandy. You will absolutely not regret it. It's been one of the biggest impactful things for our company. I can tell you, Mandy is the executive coach for our entire leadership team. There's not a person on our leadership team that doesn't sit across from her in some form or fashion. So freaking go invest in yourself. Go find somebody like her or her herself and watch how much it impacts your personal life, your business life, and ultimately where you're going to end up in life.